So my name's Jeff. So
Nice to meet you.
what's your name?
Oh, Vanessa.
Vanessa?
24. Yeah.
Okay.
Micah?
Micah. Okay. So what's your, so interesting that you've been to my church, or at least a location of it. What's your initial take on that question? What do you think happens after this life? And I'll ask more questions like how you got to whatever you believe or doubt about, wherever you're at. So you don't have to give a speech or anything, but just, yeah.
I believe in heaven and hell.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure of the process. I've definitely grown up in the church, and everyone I've been around with is always, I grew up with the teachings.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like I know what is told
Okay.
that happens.
Yeah.
But obviously I haven't
The party
experienced it.
line or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what you're supposed to believe.
And
Right.
yeah, exactly. I know I'm taught, but I don't know what I've learned, on my own,
Yeah. And a lot of times the way I put it is, you get to a certain age, I don't know how old you are, but 23. Most people I find out, and this is true across the board, whatever religion, not just Christianity, but some people grow up in their parents' religion, and then they get to a point where they have to decide, is this for me?
Mm-hmm.
And take ownership of it. And so there's kind of and it's usually when you're leaving home or whatever, but do you feel like you've done some exploring on your own, or has
Definitely.
it just been,
Yeah, I mean, my family was in North Carolina, so when I moved away,
from the Bible Belt, or?
yeah, from the Bible Belt, yeah. No one pronounces Micah correctly anymore.
Oh,
Down there, everyone knows how, but
how do you pronounce it?
Micah.
Oh,
Yeah, but everyone says Micah.
oh, okay.
Micah is a big popular.
Micah's very popular.
I've actually had these conversations in North Carolina.
Oh,
too,
really?
Because
Yeah.
my mother-in-law used to live there. And,
Oh, okay.
And so I would talk to people, and people were actually kind of offended that I would even ask, because it's kind of assumed that, well, I'm a Christian. I go,
Yeah.
they just.
A lot of it is role playing, I've noticed. For me, the people that I find that are more modest here
Mhm.
about being a Christian, back home it's kind of they make it in it's their identity,
Yeah,
and
it's the status quo, or it's
yeah,
expected of you.
exactly. So
Yeah.
whenever I find a Christian here, she and I connect really well. When we both found out that we each are we're believers and such, one way or the other, and it's more honest conversations about it.
Yeah.
Than back home, it's much more shoved down your throat.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe it this way, are you a heathen?
Yeah.
Um,
And then a lot of people I talk to are actually, like you say, they feel like it was shoved down their throat as far as growing up with it,
Mhm.
to the point where now they're really rebellious. So they're kind of total atheists, or totally in the opposite, because they don't like the idea that it was forced on them. So now they're gonna go the complete opposite direction. So I find that a lot of the atheists I talk to actually, if they're outspoken about it, they actually grew up in a religious background.
mhm. Yeah.
But you're saying you're not sure. You believe in heaven and hell. Obviously, you believe in God, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Not sure the process. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know. They always say that one of the things my mom likes to say is you're going to be accounted for everything you say and everything.
Yeah.
So she makes it seem like there's going to be someone with a book of everything I've done and said,
Yeah.
and then tell me if I can or can't get in. Otherwise, it's like in the movies where you just kind of pop in and you're just there. So, yeah, it's like a hiring process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Vanessa?
Well, my grandma, she introduced me to her church when I was really small. So every Sunday she would pick me up, and I knew that there was a heaven and hell. But as I was getting older, I always questioned a couple things, because it wouldn't make sense to me the way that I would see, my image of God and stuff. So I always felt like there was more, sometimes it was kind of as when I was growing up, I started questioning things a little bit more, and I started learning things, and I believe that that right now in our bodies we're vessels, but their spirit lives on after there is an afterlife.
Yeah.
Because I just don't believe that we can be put on this earth to just disappear, you know, and like how is that possible? So I definitely think there's something like afterlife, but I don't know. I'm learning so many things, and it makes me question things, which is good. But also, it's like I'm not believing everything I hear. You know, like I started learning about like the law of attraction and how you speak things into like reality and stuff, existence, and I started putting things that I learned from church as far as speaking in tongues and how like strong our tongue is. Like when we speak, we have to be careful what we say, and it would make sense because the way that God, you know, made earth and stuff, He spoke things into existence. So why not us have that power? So when I started thinking the way that I was thinking before, because before I feel like hopeless. Every time I would pray to God, it would be like hopelessness and stuff. But it's like, why not be grateful for what I already have and be content with what God has given me? And so I mean, I still believe in God and stuff, but as I'm like again growing and learning, like I don't believe 100% in what the church has taught me. But I still like believe some things of the church that I have brought with me, and it's made me a good person, you know, like why not? Like I think that's the good side of religion, that, you know, that makes people want to be good or better, give them that hope that, hey, things can get better.
Yeah. Are either of you actively going to a church now, or?
No, so I used to go out far around Elmwood to go to church, but it would just be like my family that would get picked up all the way down here in the south side. So eventually, like my cousins stopped going and everybody just stopped going. So I've had trouble trying to find a church where I can like just go in and feel comfortable. Because I still obviously believe in the house of God and worship and everything, because I've experienced it, I felt it, so I know it's real. Like I feel it in my heart, like it's real, you know. And
would you say you felt a spiritual reality there, you know, like I guess what I'm wondering is like, what did you feel at church? Like, what made it different for you?
When I got very comfortable with praying like to God, and I could like feel more open to sharing how I really truly felt without being ashamed, that's when I felt like I really let God in, because it's just all around you, all the energy you feel among the people that are praying, like this anointing that you feel is just so beautiful. And then I don't know if you ever have spoken in tongues or felt the Holy Spirit, but it's just a rush of like heat that goes all through your body, and you just feel it. It's just so overwhelming, and I think that's what like makes me like really cry, because it's just an overwhelming feeling that, you know, surrounds me and stuff. So it's beautiful, you know, and I felt it, and so I still hold my belief where, you know, that God is real.
So I believe in speaking in tongues. Like I've said, God, Lord, if you want to speak through me, or you know, allow me to speak in tongues, I'm willing, but I never have, and I'm cool with that. Like I feel like if God wants to, I'm willing, but if He doesn't, then, you know, I'm not, you know, that's not, you know, like my main priority or whatever. But do you read the Bible much?
You know what? A long time ago. Well, when they did start picking me up to go to church, I was really into religion, you know. So I took it upon myself to start reading the Bible. So I only read like the beginnings of the Bible, but I never got through it. But I just feel, and I've heard from other people too, like it's an experience itself, just like reading the entire Bible. So I'd
encourage you to get back to it, and my advice would be to look at the Bible as being like a library of books, where you don't feel like, oh, I've got to read this big huge novel from cover to cover, because there's parts of the Bible that are very hard to work through. large parts of the Old Testament where if you just don't really have a handle on what it's trying to say, it's like, wow, you know. And a lot of people approach it from like, I got to read it from cover to cover, and Genesis is very interesting, and then Exodus, and then you start to get into all these laws and different genealogies and things like that, and so like you wouldn't walk into a library and read it, you know, like A to Z. You go to the things that you can relate to, and I find the more I read the Bible, the parts that like the New Testament especially, it makes the other parts more understandable. So a lot of people complain that I just don't understand it, and it's like, well, there's a lot of parts of the Bible you do understand, so why don't you start there, and then you'll start to understand the other parts, you know, more. But and it's supposed to be something like our daily bread, you know, like our spiritual food. Like we don't binge on it all at once. You know, like a Thanksgiving meal is supposed to last us for the whole year or something. It's like, no, a little bit every day. Good habit to get into. So how about you? What's your experience with reading the Bible? Have you read it?
I used to do it pretty often, especially back when I was going to church with my parents all the time.
Do you have like a catechism or a Sunday school or
I was
confirmation or anything like that?
You mean like a confirmation is like a public thing? Or?
Well, for me, I grew up Lutheran, and there was actually like classes that you'd go to learn more about the Bible and stuff like that.
No, I went to non-denominational, so there wasn't anything like that. They definitely encouraged it, and I'd go to youth as well every Wednesday, like growing up, my entire life until I was 19, and I moved away. So they'd have us read stuff, and then we'd talk about it. So I definitely did read a lot. I don't now. I kind of substituted for more. I listen to a ton of gospel.
Oh, okay, like the music.
Especially during my workouts and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So we actually send each other a lot of like
gospel.
We send like gospel and worship songs.
It just puts you in such a good mood, like worship.
And then you listen to it, and like a lot of it is, you know, it talks about what goes on in the Bible, but I don't read myself, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm going to encourage you to read the Bible more, and you guys encourage me to listen to more gospel music.
It's good stuff.
Because lately I've been struggling with being kind of like a news junkie, you know? And so it's like I want this whole thing to be over. And I'm just looking for any news that, it's going to be over. And anyway.
Gospel's going to help you get through it.
I did listen to some just in the last few days, and I was out jogging and put on some good Christian music, and it was good. It was a good contrast to the bad news I've been hearing. So.
Israel and the New Breed. Have you heard of them?
No.
Yeah, they're good.
Are you talking gospel or just like
it's
Christian?
gospel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a really good style.
That's cool. Yeah. So, let me ask you guys this. Obviously, so you believe there's heaven and hell. I think it sounds like both of you believe that. There is a day of judgment the Bible talks about, that God, and you believe there's life after death, because like, why would God make us and then we just cease to exist, right? So there's meaning in life, there's a purpose, a higher purpose than just this life, you know? What would, and if there's a heaven and a hell, then some people are going to go to one and some to the other, right? What would be the difference between someone who ends up in heaven or hell, you know?
Well, also, I mean, one thing I to be honest, just don't grasp is what is the purpose of heaven and hell? Like, why is there different stages? Like, if there is a purpose to it, like, what is? You know, like, so a lot of people say like, this life really doesn't mean much other than storing up for your next life. So what is that next life supposed to be? So that's
what are we accomplishing there? Or whatever?
Exactly. I mean, are we getting 401ks there as well, or is this? You know, what's the reason for a next life if this life technically doesn't mean much apart from being good? And
so it's like there's got to be more to life than just going to heaven, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
so on
I guess,
yeah. So it's like there's more to this life than just living and dying. So there's more to this life than there's just this life, but there's also more to this life than just going to heaven. You know what I'm
I mean,
saying?
I guess, yeah. And like, what is the purpose of it all?
Yeah. One thing, I mean, I can short answer. I can say that I think a lot of people get confused is that we do have our purpose is to as part of the creation. God created in order to glorify Himself, to show His glory, and to express His glory, to express Himself in completely to be glorified as God. And so this is kind of hard to hear, but God is glorified in His love and His kindness in allowing some people to be with Him in heaven, but He's also glorified in His justice and His power as His enemies and people who rebel against Him are punished in hell. Yeah. And that's hard, because it's like, well, isn't God supposed to be loving,
Yeah.
But if you think about it, justice, like God is loving, yes, but He's good in every way. In all of His attributes, He's good. And so even His justice is a good thing.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, we like justice. We want to see, there be a consequence for wrongdoing, and we want to see the criminal get caught, and people, we're sorry that it happens, but people need to, justice needs to be served. And so God would be, the perfect, God would love perfect justice. And so hell is a place where justice, there's a if you think about all of God's different attributes, like the different aspects of God, God is perfect in every way, right? So God is loving, and His love is perfect, but then how can He treat us as sinners? Well, so that means His love means He's going to treat us as sinners kindly and forgive us and have mercy. But then if God is perfect in His justice, then okay, we're sinners, we deserve to be punished. How can God be both loving and just at the same time and perfect, in every way? So,
yeah.
Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so most religions will say, well, the Creator is kind of loving. They kind of like say, well, He's kind of loving because He'll let you kind of like earn your way to a higher being existence after we die. But there is some consequence for your wrongdoing, but you can kind of earn your way back, and so it's like half love because there is some punishment, and it's half justice because there is some love. And see what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
But the God of Christianity says no, it's perfect. He's perfectly loving and perfectly just at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's where the cross comes in.
Yeah.
That's where God is in His justice, His perfect justice. He takes the He says as the judge, there's a punishment for the crime, and the only acceptable sacrifice would be someone who has eternal worth and value, who's never sinned before. This is where Jesus comes in, and then he's perfectly loving because He's sacrificing for us. He's giving the most costly, the pearl of great price, His own Son to die for us. So Christianity, I feel like, is very unique because it's the one place where God's love and His justice are expressed perfectly at the cross.
Yeah.
And so the question about like what do we do in heaven? It's like, well, if we're made to glorify God, that's what we'll be doing in heaven. I don't know, how that's. I don't think we're going to be floating around on clouds and playing harps,
Yeah, exactly.
What? No.
So I'm actually teaching a theology class for my church, and this week's lesson is about the resurrection of Christ and His ascension to heaven, His resurrection. And there's a lot of parallels between Christ's resurrection body and the example He sets for the kind of resurrection body we'll have. And so when Jesus died on the cross, when He rose again, He received His glorified body, and that's kind of a sign, like the Bible calls it the first fruits of the kind of body we'll have. So we're not going to be just spirits, like angels. We're going to actually have our bodies, a perfect body,
Yeah.
So it won't be floating around on clouds because we'll have bodies, you know.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, most definitely.
But so I'll give you the information for my channel.
Yeah, sure.
My YouTube channel, and I'm actually putting the lessons on there, so you can see those
the
too.
theology lessons.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
take
channel?
it down.
Here, I'll give you. I have a card.
Oh, that works.
I'll turn this off too. It's kind of annoying, right?
Oh, that's fine. Thanks for stopping me.